Hi everybody. So for this week's episode of CS135 Lab, we're going to basically create sort of a database management system. So let's go ahead and just do a quick brief discussion of what a database really is. It's basically just so database management system is composed of a set of databases. Each one is going to be composed of a set of tables. That's really all there is to it. I don't really want to overcomplicate this right now. But the whole structure of Lab 9 will be we're going to read from a spreadsheet file or otherwise a comma separated file. And basically a comma separated file is like any text file, except that, instead of using a space to separate data, a comma is used to separate data. That's all there is to it. It's really nothing too fancy. And we can think of it like this. So a CSV file, for example, has a name, comma, age, comma, height. So if you open your spreadsheet, it would have a separate column for each of these, right? So the commas kind of help distinguish what column in the spreadsheet you're in. So this would be the first row, second row, third row, fourth row, and each of these separated by a comma tells you what column you're in. This is first row, column 1. This would be row 3, column 3 for the 5 foot 2. So basically that's all there is to this. So really to read from a CSV file was really not much different than reading from any regular plain text file. So the first thing is you want to get the zip file from the Canvas site. So here's a zip file right here given to you. So this is going to be the content essentially given to you. You're going to have these two CVP files right here. Let's go ahead and open these up and see what they are. We first have this helpers.cpp. This file contains all of the helper functions you may need to use in your lab. Not all of them necessarily, but you may have to use a couple of these for Lab 9. So basically, don't mess with these. Just sort of know that, just try to understand how they work, and you have to basically use them. You wouldn't have to really know the details. You have to know essentially what it does. And the function names with the comments kind of speak for themselves, but I'll probably give a few little maybe hints as to what you want to actually use this with, but it's really nothing too fancy here. So anyway, then we have Lab 9. So you have to implement a few functions in this. You have to basically implement show header, but this one's very simple to write. You have to implement add database and show databases. These two are a little bit more work, but not too bad either though. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of cover this later, but let's go ahead and talk about these two for right now. Let's cover add database. So you can actually read from the handout what this function will do. I guess I'll go with the handout as well, so that way we can kind of read this together. So in this function, you're first going to have to pass in a string, which will be a database name. So let me go ahead first. Let me just go back to the to our stuff here. So we have this folder here called CSV. Let's open this folder up. Then we have this file here called databases.csv. That's also given to you. Let's open this up. And it contains just one string database. That's just given to you. So basically, this function has to read through this file and do a search. So I'll go ahead and minimize it for right now, just so we can kind of open this up again. So this function tries to add a new database. Now, what it has to do is it has to first search through this file, csv databases.csv. It has to read through this file and look for this. So let's go ahead and just go back to the code here just for a second. We have add database. We're saying string name. So I want to create this database with the name name over here. So the first step is we open up that file, database.csv, and we simply search through that file and try to find that name. So let's say, for example, the name used over here, let's say the actual string contained in that name variable contains db, let's say, d followed by a b. What you first do is you open this file and you search and try to find the name db in here. If you can't find db in here, then you're going to go ahead and add this db to this file. You're going to add it to a new row. So basically, you want to open your file stream like this. So out file will be a normal OF stream variable. You call open, and it's going to be the file name. Now, instead of saying test.txt, you're going to actually copy this and put it in there. And in this part here, the second part of this open function is just so, remember how output streams work. If you open an output stream, it's going to destroy the existing file and create a new one. You don't want to do that. You want to append a new string to that file. So you have to use this command here so you don't destroy the original file. Then when you open it, you just kind of loop through it. You read, each line by line in that spreadsheet file and compare that string to that name. And what you do is, if you find a match, if you find that name in this spreadsheet, return false. That means you can't really add a new database because it already exists. If you can't find it in that file, what you do is you're going to append that name to the file, which is a very simple task. You just literally outfile less than, and then that name, just the same way you always write to any kind of file. But it's going to append it to the end. It's not going to overwrite. It's going to append to the end of that file. And then after you're done with that, after you close that file stream, you will create a new file using, I suppose, the same output file name, except for this one you would not use open, and you would not use this std iOS base. You would just open like normal because you want to create a new file now. And the file name will be essentially that name you pass into the function, underscore tables.csv. And in that file, you're going to write one line which will contain literally this. So so it's going to be actually, so I'll put the quotes in here too. You're going to output this to the file. So database, comma, table, comma, column count, /n. So it's going to output one line to the spreadsheet. Then you close that, and then return true, meaning that you successfully created a new database and you create a new table with that database. That's all there is to this. So once you have that written, this function, you have to call it in your main program somewhere. So inside of main, you got to call it somewhere. So where do we call this? Hold on. It's almost like this comment here is telling you to call that one function. This portion of the code is really handling the command when the user types in create database. So it looks like you may want to call over here somewhere. It returns true or false. You can be able to tell whether it created successfully or not. If it returned false, that means it already existed. So maybe you want to give another little error message over here for that. So there's that. The other function here is going to be show databases. So luckily, you already have, so this show databases just outputs all this. It's going to basically output in this file that we have here, databases.csv. It outputs every database essentially. If you have multiple lines, it outputs all of them. That's all this does essentially. I'm going to close it now because we're going to update this soon. So luckily this function is pretty simple. It looks like, well, you have this function given to you in the helpers.cpp, and this function outputs everything. You have to give it the proper strings. This function takes in no argument. We have to pass in an argument in here. I don't know, maybe you want to pass in this string into this function maybe? I don't know. That would be a good idea. You pass that in. That function will output all the databases in that file. So that's basically about it. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to pretty much do a more interactive sort of output here. So I have my terminal pointing to this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and keep my folder, keep this currently here in this file so we can kind of see what's going on. So to compile this, we're going to simply say g++ lab9.cpp, and it compiled. So this is a fully worked out version. Obviously you don't have it, you have to write this yourself, but anyway. So ./a.out, we'll run it. So we see this right here. So inside of your in this lab9.cpp, the function here called show header, and show header is called right there. So show header function basically outputs that. Now that's not anything too hard. It just takes a little busy work. I would say maybe at the end, worry about that at the end if you can. I really don't think it's the most important part, but it does make this program look a little nicer. I think it looks nicer. So now what you would do is you would just type create database, I'll call this maybe like a lab9 db. I'll call this. So what this does is it's going to search for this lab9 db. That's going to be your name. That's going to be name, essentially. This is going to get passed into this function. You have to go ahead and traverse this file and find lab9db, and I don't find it here. So what's going to happen is it would go ahead and add this line into this file, and also it's going to create another spreadsheet file. Let's go ahead and see what happens. I noticed that this popped up. Let's first open up databases.csv for right now. Let's open this up for a second. And look, there it is. It added this into our file. So it appended this file with this new string. So it added it. And then it created another file here, but this file is called lab9db underscore tables. You have to create that file. And in this file, well, it has this content. So this is where you have to output. So in that handout, it tells you cout, or not cout, sorry, but output to a file stream with this. So database, comma, table, comma, that, but put it into like in double quotes like that. So that's all there is to it. It's all to be contained in this file. Let's go ahead and do some more. Let's say create a database. I'll call this CS135 DB. Now I use DB just short for database. It doesn't have to be DB. It could be any name you want it to be. I'll make it here. I'll make it CS135 there. So that way it's not doesn't have DB at the end of it. So you don't think DB means anything. It has no special meaning. Just it's a name. So in this case, obviously this string 135 is not in this file. But if you notice, if I open this up, oh, there it is. It created this new row, this new line in this file. So now we have two databases, lab9db and CS135. You also can notice that right there we have this new file that got created, CS135 underscore tables.csv. If I open this up, well, same stuff there. Cool. Now, if I want to go ahead and if I create lab9db once again, we notice that this already exists in this file, database.csv. So in this case, if I hit enter, it would return false this time because it did in fact find lab9db. So it returns false, and then it outputs, you have to go ahead and output error invalid query. You notice that, well, nothing happened, nothing got updated over here, so everything is still the same. So basically if it finds it, it returns false and doesn't do anything. And the last command we have is going to be, I believe it's going to be called show databases, I believe. And this one is just going to basically output all databases. And inside this databases.csv file, it only has just lab9db and CS135, so it output these two right over here. So that's all we have to do. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. And that's about it. So hopefully this video did help. I guess happy coding on the lab. And I guess that's it for right now. So until next time, take it easy.